Leader.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, may I seek your consent and the general assent of members present to move a motion to take the proceedings on the business set down on the order paper for today beyond the moment of interruption?
I give my consent. Does the Leader of the House have the general assent of honourable members present to so move? Leader, please proceed.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that the proceedings on the business set down on the order paper for today be proceeded with beyond the moment of interruption.
The question is the motion moved by the Leader of the House. As many as are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Mr. Edward Chia.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, Sir, I welcome the 2022 national budget announced by Finance Minister Lawrence Wong. This budget builds on the strong social compact between our government with Singaporeans. In particular, our government has made decisive steps in the ongoing transformation of our labour market with a clear focus in uplifting lower wage workers. The Progressive Wage Credit Scheme, introduced in Budget 2022, provides transitional wage support for employers to adjust to upcoming mandatory wages increases for low-wage workers covered by the progressive wage model. Employers understand their critical role in strengthening our social compact and the need for them to build business resilience through fair and progressive employment practices. The transitional wage support, along with support grants and schemes to upskill workers and raise firm-level productivity, will enable employers to sustain these wage increases. Speaking with other employers, these support measures gives us confidence that the government is with us as we uplift our workforce wages. The decision to stagger the increase of GST over the span of 2 years is another strategic choice welcomed by businesses. Many businesses, especially those in consumer-facing sectors, are still reeling from the impact of COVID-19. Hence, these staggered increases provides the additional time needed for businesses to respond. A once-off hike during a period of inflation concerns will have exacerbated concerns over a potential drop in consumer spending. Beyond immediate business challenges, we need to adapt a larger resilience agenda grounded in adaptability and decisiveness. This resilience agenda will move beyond defensive measures and short-term goals to encompass strategies aimed at achieving inclusive and sustainable growth. In my speech, I will expand on 2 key aspects of resilience: labour resilience and climate resilience. Labour market resilience can be characterized by low unemployment rate, sufficient supply of skilled labour, and productivity and wage growth. As observed from Budget 2022, the government aims to instill labour market resilience through 2 broad strategies. Firstly, to ensure that Singaporeans who are willing and able to do the jobs will get good jobs with higher wages and better work prospects. By calibrating the minimum qualifying salary of employment pass and S-pass applicants, employers are strongly encouraged to further consider the quality of foreign workers that they want to bring in and how these workers also strengthen the larger workforce with our Singaporean core. The second strategy aims to increase the productivity of our labour force through the digitalization of processes and skills upgrading. This strategy is materialized through schemes like the Productivity Solutions Grants that subsidizes the implementation of digital and automated solutions designed to raise productivity, and the Skills Future Enterprise Credit that offsets up to 90% of expenses for skills upgrading initiatives. While most businesses would agree with the rationale behind these strategies to strengthen labour market resilience, they face operational and structural challenges that impede their adoption of these strategies. After many conversations with business owners over the past few months, the difficulty in hiring Singaporeans is a real one. Job recruitment advertisements for Singaporean yield low responses. In a recent meeting with a fintech startup, the entrepreneur shared of his difficulties in hiring software engineers. At the same meeting, a business owner in the manufacturing sector lamented he was unable to hire sufficient staff to fulfill customers' orders. Anecdotes like these are repeated by employers from other industries, even when all of them show eagerness to hire Singaporeans. The hiring challenges is also keenly felt in our social services sectors. In my constituency in Zhenghua, I have received numerous appeals from young parents for childcare and infant care placements. Our anchor operator has just taken possession of a large space at the new Senja BTO development, much to the delight of parents. However, parents will have to wait longer for placements as the operator is still facing challenges in hiring sufficient teaching staff. The center is unlikely to run at its optimal capacity when it opens. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I believe Singaporeans are talented and driven, but there is simply not enough of us. This is a consequence of our aging population and low birth rates. Our local workforce is anticipated to shrink in the coming years. While I agree that we must provide gainful employment for Singaporeans and strengthen the complementary factor with the foreign workforce, we may soon or already have reached a point where there is simply not enough of us. Beyond complementing our local workforce, we need to look at supplementing our workforce. This is especially so for essential services and what I would term also as enabling services. For example, services such as childcare and infant care enables young parents to dedicate themselves to their jobs, thereby enabling them to be economically active. As we recognize and emphasize the importance of our mental health, there will be a growing need for counselors in our schools, workplaces, and in our communities. With greater mental health capabilities, we can help and enable as many Singaporeans to be at their best mental and emotional state. One thing that I believe that all Singaporeans enjoy is our hawker food. Our hawkerpreneurs and culture is recognized by UNESCO. But will we have enough Singaporeans, especially with other sectors competing for the same local talent, take up the walks as our hawker legends hang up their ladles? Essential and enabling sectors remain highly dependent on human labor. For sectors such as healthcare, social work, and early childhood, human labor is literally the commodity being traded, and digital adoption is commonly seen as complementary to human labor, but not a perfect substitute. There are also regulatory requirements on service providers to client ratios that cannot be changed despite higher levels of productivity. An example will be our early childhood sector, where ACDA mandates a teacher-to-student ratio of 1:8 to 25, depending on ages. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, there is really not enough of us. I seek the government to review the essential services sector's manpower requirements and the projected needs in the coming years vis-à-vis our local workforce numbers. There is also growing concerns within the business and international community that Singapore is perceived to be closing up and foreigners are not welcome. We need to address these concerns as such perceptions have grave consequences for Singapore. As shared, our workforce is aging, our labour force growth is declining, and we won't have enough workers. For Singapore to stay relevant in this fast-changing world, we need access to the best talent and have them be part of our team. Domestically, we need essential and enabling workers to support Singapore's aspirations and care for our seniors and children. This need for Singapore to remain open has been felt both economically and socially to build labour resilience. Singapore has always been a talent capital, and being welcoming to different nationalities and races to call Singapore their new home is essential for our continuous development. Marriage data shows that we have also more Singaporeans marrying foreigners, and this trend is likely to continue. All of this makes social integration and acceptance absolutely important. This acceptance of differences is occurring at all levels of society, from preschools where I've seen children who are not yet attuned to our local languages, to workplaces where respect for religious beliefs in food and practices require more sophisticated HR practices. Retaining and growing our multicultural DNA is absolutely critical, and now with even more diversity in it, we need to constantly work at it from our grassroots to our policy officers. Our social compact needs to be strengthened through social integration, and I believe this is where much more effort can be put in our community with active involvement by companies too. On the productivity front, the time lag between the implementation of productivity enhancement solutions and reaping their results is a very real challenge for businesses. Allow me to elaborate on this. Even when businesses successfully leverage on the productivity enhancement schemes and implement more digitalizations and skills transformation programs, there will be a lag time before digital capabilities are running at full steam and employees up to speed with their skill transformation programs. During this transitional period, businesses face a shortage of plug-and-play labor to meet their business needs, compounded by labor shortages and the scarcity of tech talent in Singapore. As a result, even if companies are open to adopting new technologies, there is still apprehension and resistance to operationalizing such solutions because of the inability to seize revenue opportunities in the short run. Inevitably, businesses will eventually reach a tipping point for technology adoption. The COVID-19 crisis was such one crucial tipping point of historical magnitude. However, the purpose of cultivating labor resilience is to ensure that businesses can ride on the waves of digitalization instead of being submerged under them. At present, operational and structural challenges are impeding businesses from actualizing a resilient labor force. I acknowledge that radical mindset shift on the part of businesses is needed to respond to larger global trends. However, I'd like to ask the government, what else can be done to address the short-term challenges that businesses face in building a resilient labor force? And what other measures can be put in place to guide businesses as they re-envision their business transformation roadmaps? With a clear labor shortage on our shores, what is the bigger strategy for our workforce composition that will enable us to remain competitive? Another aspect of resilience agenda is that of climate resilience. I affirm the government's commitment towards strengthening Singapore's net zero goals and significantly raising carbon taxes. These steps are necessary and crucial in ensuring Singapore's transition to the green economy and affirm Singapore's commitment towards climate change. Despite our efforts, the sobering reality is that it's unlikely for us to fully escape the effects of climate change. The floods that resulted from torrential rain in many states of Malaysia last December exposed the reality of extreme weather patterns caused by climate change. Hence, there is a need to strengthen our climate resilience through infrastructure interventions. The government announced new plans in 2020 for coastal protection measures against rising sea levels to mitigate effects of climate change. Range of options to combat rising sea levels include engineering feats such as reclamation and building seawalls, as well as nature-based solutions are being considered. The Significant Infrastructure Government Loan Act, SINGA, will allow the government to borrow up to 90 billion to pay for infrastructure that will last for at least 50 years. To diversify the funding options for green infrastructure, Budget 2022 announced that 35 billion of green bonds will be issued by 2030 to fund public sector green infrastructure projects. This builds on the 19 billion worth of green bonds issued during Budget 2021. In relation to these new sources of funding, I'd like to ask the government to provide more details on infrastructure projects that have been earmarked for development and specifically the opportunities for our local businesses to be involved in these developments so that they can build necessary capabilities. In addition to the other opportunities in the green economy, does the government view engineering solutions in climate change adaptation as a sector where our businesses can hone a niche in and eventually export solutions internationally? Overall, this budget will continue to strengthen our common resilience agenda and reinforce Singapore's strong social compact. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I rise in support of the budget. Thank you.